I know a few good stories. They take place in a corner of America that might seem familiar, yet still manages to surprise. The settings are spectacular, the characters compelling, the action exciting, the plot lines unpredictable. I'm Tom Richardson. Join me as I explore New England's great outdoors, from Candlewood Lake, Connecticut to Caribou, Maine, from the beaches of Cape Cod to the peaks of New Hampshire's White Mountains. The stories are waiting. Let's live them on Explore New England. Explore New England is brought to you by your New England Ford dealers. If there's one creature that embodies the wild beauty of northern New England, it's the brook trout. This stunning fish, technically not a trout, but a member of the char family, has flourished in cold water rivers, lakes, and ponds since the last ice age. At once mysterious and miraculous to behold, its colors as brilliant as those of an autumn maple. Dependent on clear, cold, well-oxygenated water, brookies are considered an indicator of healthy boreal habitat, the kind still found in northwest Maine's Rangeley Lakes region. Here, rivers such as the Rapid, the Kennebago, and the Magalloway have drawn sport fishermen since the mid-1800s and continue to produce trophy fish of 5 pounds or more. They are hallowed waters indeed. Vic Medina first encountered brook trout on the other side of the country, in the eastern Sierra Nevadas. Although he didn't know it at the time, those California fish were direct descendants of brookies transplanted from the Rangeley area. Vic eventually moved to western Maine, became a registered Maine guide, and joined a long line of outdoorsmen and women whose job involves connecting anglers to these remarkable fish. In September of 2025, I joined Vic, fellow guide Alex Case, photographer Matt Trogner, and angler Christina Starr on a quest for wild brookies on the Magalloway, which originates from pure, spring-fed streams near the New Hampshire border and flows 30 miles south to its confluence with the Androscoggin River. The trip was hosted by the Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust, partly to highlight the natural treasures of the Magalloway Watershed as a whole, and why they're worth protecting.
So I was in the Marine Corps, and there's a place right here in the Rangeley Lakes region that offers that training. So as I drove up, I was a student back in 2006. I drove up from Brunswick all the way to here, then I started gaining elevation, started seeing mountains, and I'm looking around and I see the stream, the sandy river, then you start seeing the ponds, and you see them come up on this big, huge lake with mountains all around. It reminded me of back home. I grew up out west in the Sierra Nevadas in North Lake Tahoe, so it reminded me a little bit of that, and I thought, this place is fishy. It's gotta be, right? So I made it a point to come back. I came back and did a little bit more training with that. Lo and behold, pretty fortunate too, I met my wife. I was stationed in North Carolina, and she's from the area. She's about an hour south of here, so everything was just coming together, and I like to fish, and what better place than one of the most historic areas to fish in all of the Northeast. Listen to me, right? I'm listening. All right, so this, no more strip when I tell you to keep your hand on the line. Yep. You're going to strip when I ask you to strip. Okay. And keep that rod pointer a little bit higher. If he wants to run, you let him slip through, all right? Strip. Brook trout are the fortunate recipients of this of the atmosphere and the biology that's here and the wilderness and the waters and everything. So what they have come up with, the scientists, what they have figured out is that the whole biosphere up there above on the beginning waters of the Magalloway is so rich in nutrients and resources to include the entire stretch of land there that it can support, right? Say the brook trout were at its very end and we needed to bring him somewhere, right, where we know we can preserve him. That land up there, without being altered or anything in its natural state, has it's so rich in resources that it will preserve brook trout and any other aquatic life and wildlife over there. That's what's so important about the Magalloway project over there. Yeah. You know, is that it just provides that like no other place. Literally, that has been rated the number one spot by the scientists as the most resource and nutrient rich region up there in all of New England. No kidding. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty incredible. That's why this project is so important.
Oh, that's a
While our trout fishing adventure took place south of Aziscahos Lake, created when a dam was built on the Magalloway in 1911, wild brookies can be found throughout the river system. In fact, the trout that live north of Aziscahos have never been supplementally stocked. As such, they retain the very same genetic makeup as the trout that existed in the Magalloway roughly 11,000 years ago. Ensuring the existence of these precious aquatic jewels, now under siege by warming climate and expanding development, was just one impetus for the Magalloway Collaborative Project, a coalition of 4 conservation groups that have joined forces to purchase and conserve 78,000 acres of privately held land surrounding the headwaters of the Magalloway. The project's multifaceted goals include protecting the area's unique habitat and wildlife, in harmony with a working forest and continued access to recreation in western Maine. Key to establishing a big-picture roadmap for the project's success was the Nature Conservancy, an environmental organization with a long history of conserving land and water around the globe.
So the Nature Conservancy is a global conservation organization, and right now the Appalachians are a global focal place for us, one of only 4 in the world. This project is hugely important to maintaining habitat connectivity for lots of species through the Appalachians, so how species might move at the scale of our continent. And we are really fortunate to be working with 3 great partners. All 4 of us work really closely together on every aspect of this project. We hold the option agreement with Wagner Forest Management, but at the end of the project, we won't be holding any of the land or the conservation easements. That will be our partners, Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust, the Northeast Wilderness Trust, and the Forest Society of Maine.
So to accomplish a landscape scale conservation project like this, it's kind of a little bit of every player has their piece. And so Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust, it's a 78,000 acre total conservation area. Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust will end up owning about 4,400 acres. And then our partners at the Forest Society of Maine will have about 62,000. They hold the largest portion of it as a conservation easement. And then on the north end, we have Northeast Wilderness Trust. They have a wilderness preserve that's about 11,000 acres. So kind of all working in tandem to meet all of our conservation goals and objectives, and come to this agreement with the landowner where we still have working forest and we still have public access. It's a little bit of everything to kind of make this bigger picture project happen. Yeah, so we are all about preserving public access to all types of outdoor recreation. So whether you're visiting to fish, you know, fishing's obviously one of the biggest things, paddle, hike, hunting, all of that will be within Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust's part of the property. A big factor is existing snowmobile access. One of the main snowmobile thoroughfares from Rangeley region into New Hampshire, the ITS, runs right through the Magalloway property, so that will be preserved forever, that snowmobile access, which is an incredible part of the project.
The Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust, created in 1991, currently manages over 120,000 acres of land in the Rangeley region. In 2010, it took over management of the popular Cupsuptic Lake Park and Campground, which serves as an ideal home base for those looking to explore the Magalloway Watershed. The campground features 141 tent and RV sites, most with water and electric hookup, as well as 5 remote sites on a nearby island. Bathhouses with hot showers and coin-operated laundry machines are also available, and firewood and ice can be purchased at a small on-site store. Powerboats and paddlecraft can be rented at the campground's marina, but guests are welcome to bring their own vessels. As mentioned, the Heritage Trust is heavily invested in ensuring public access and recreational opportunities within the Rangeley region. But another part of its mission is habitat restoration. The Trust has secured affirmative rights to conduct river restoration throughout the entire Magalloway Project area, building off a model they've put to work in the Kennebago Watershed. I got to witness some of this work firsthand when I caught up with conservation biologist Jason Latham and his team, who were building a new open-bottom bridge over a tributary stream of the Kennebago.
The primary goal of this project is to really reconnect habitat which has essentially been fragmented by these undersized culverts, and opening access up to upstream habitat that otherwise they couldn't access. The Kennebago and the Magalloway are, 2 of our priority watersheds because they do have, one of the highest probabilities of supporting self-sustaining wild brook trout populations into the future, despite, worst case future temperature scenarios. And the natural characteristic of this stream is a step pool configuration. So you can see in here we've engineered these what we call rock ribs every 10 to 12 feet, and it's kind of in an inverse U shape. So the idea is to create a nice little riffle and then a pool and then a little riffle and then a pool, so that brook trout coming upstream can have a nice little place to rest and then hop up to the next pool and access upstream mileages. So what we've done is excavated the stream bed. We've put these rocks in downstream of these upper rocks, and they're slightly lower in elevation, and the idea is that they'll anchor these rocks in place during any large storms. And you can see the water's running through all of these little crevices, so brook trout have 3 or 4 avenues right in this little pool to access upstream. And the water temperature, it's almost July and it's right around 50 degrees, so good cold water, great habitat for brook trout, especially for nursery habitat, thermal refuge. It's nice to be able to find rewarding work, as a profession, and as much planning and logistics and permitting goes into this. I mean, the results are immediate. Once we pulled that lower block net, removed this culvert, and we have our nice step pools here, there were brook trout moving upstream within 2 minutes of removing the net. So, you get instant results.
Central to the Magalloway Collaborative Project proposal to the current landowner, Beirut LLC, was achieving a balance between conservation and maintaining a working forest that provides jobs and other economic benefits to the surrounding community. Enter the Forest Society of Maine, which has a proven track record of working with landowners to achieve mutually beneficial goals. Given its expertise, the group was instrumental in forging an agreement with local land manager, Wagner Forest Management, that allows for continued logging operations under heightened conservation requirements.
Specifically for this easement, we have some provisions that limit future development, and development means everything from houses to wind farms to mining operations to bottling water. All things that could be really intensive uses that would change kind of the nature of the forest. Then there's the division limitations, which limit how many future owners there can be of this 60,000 acre plus property. And that's beneficial for managing for wildlife habitat. The larger that you can manage an area, the better you can manipulate the habitats to always be there somewhere on the landscape. And so the bigger it is, the easier it is to manage for that. And there are some animals that live out there that are wide-ranging. You know, moose and Canada lynx use 30 to 50,000 acres as a home range. And so that's really helpful to have that large block that's always going to be forest. And on the smaller scale, we have unique provisions in this easement that will put special protections on some high-quality brook trout habitat, streams that put no harvest buffers along some of those streams based on how important they are. That's already been mapped by the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife for brook trout that they know are there. And so keeping those streams shaded and with the trees that will grow up and then fall in and make unique habitat within it, that's a really important cycle for the whole process. And that's something that's unique to this easement negotiation of putting those buffers in. That's not something that we've seen in other places. Overall, the property has to be managed sustainably. There are a list of items related to that in terms of the landowner is going to model out how much they know is growing, how much that means they can harvest in a certain time period, making sure that they're accounting for all the other wildlife habitats and recreational resources that are out there. They take those into account as they do their management. Key to the whole project is keeping the status of that access as it was so that people can continue to come and recreate there. Landowners have allowed this use for a long time, and that's not a guarantee. And so the fact that people have been able to get to these lands and recreate here for generations, really, doesn't mean it would continue. And so part of the provisions of this easement allow for that to continue and for the landowner to acknowledge that it will continue and that it's a part of the landscape that they're okay with, and that every other landowner that comes along after them will be okay with.
Obviously, timber harvesting has come a long way from the days of felling trees with hand tools and using oxen and horses to drive logs to the nearest river. To get a sense of modern harvesting practices, I tagged along with Wagner Forest Management President Dan Hudnut and Regional Manager Scott Rainier on a worksite visit inside the Magalloway project boundaries.
So Beirut LLC is the owner of the property. They own over 500,000 acres here in western Maine and northern New Hampshire. A lot of that is under the supply agreement where the pulpwood from the land goes to the mill in Rumford, Maine. We're pretty big believers in conservation easements. We've done, historically we did a big one up on the West Branch with the Forest Society of Maine, and then we've done a big one down East Maine with the New England Forestry Foundation. We really like the focus on working forests and taking out the potential development value, the other potential uses of the land, and letting us focus on sustainable timber management.
This land has been harvested multiple times in the last 100 plus years. And so it's a sustainable product. All of these trees have naturally regenerated over time. And it grows back quite quickly. I mean, usually within a year or two, you have some seedlings starting to pop up, and and every year they just grow more and more. So I mean, it really is a sustainable product.
Properly managed forestry is not only sustainable, it creates important habitat for animals that depend on early successional growth, including moose, deer, grouse, woodcock, turkey, and a variety of neotropical migratory birds. While sustainable logging operations will continue on parts of the land owned by the Rangeley Lakes Heritage Trust and those subject to the conservation easement with the Forest Society of Maine, the Northeast Wilderness Trust, or NEWT, has a different goal. It will hold in fee 11,200 acres in the northernmost part of the Magalloway Watershed as a forever wild preserve that is open to the public and where no logging or development will ever be allowed. I visited this remote part of the watershed with Becky Clough, NEWT's Northern New England land steward.
Northeast Wilderness Trust, our mission is to conserve forever wild landscapes for nature and for people. And so we were founded in 2002. Our region is all of New England and into New York. So about 46,000 acres of that is in Maine. So a lot of our lands it's a combination of fee-owned lands that the Northeast Wilderness Trust owns, and we have partnerships with a lot of other organizations across our service region that are fee owners, but we put our conservation easements, our forever wild easements, onto those lands. And so the goal is anywhere that is a newt preserve or sanctuary or has one of these forever wild easements on it, our hope is that they will be old growth forests someday. So we're protecting them both for day use, quiet recreation. Our core of our mission is really ecocentric, so nature for nature's sake, having places where nature can heal and thrive. And our goal is to not necessarily pick winners or losers, but let nature do its thing out on the land. You can have kind of more of a backcountry experience up here, again, which is sort of rare in the Northeast, to be able to come up to a place and have to work really hard to get into it. There's a live stonefly.
Oh, cool. Can you grab him?
Yep, so he's got gills right now, and eventually, he's playing dead, but eventually he'll crawl up onto a rock out of water, hatch out of his a little exoskeleton, and fly around and find a partner, and then start the cycle over again. But these kind of bugs are usually indicators of really nice, healthy waterways. Like all of our preserves with the Northeast Wilderness Trust, the public is welcome to come up for quiet day use pedestrian access. So you will be able to drive up to a gate, come in, you can walk in. The things that you could do, you could ski on an old logging road for miles if you wanted to, or snowshoe if you wanted to. There's tons of hiking. I've seen Rump Mountain is on all trails for people that want to come in from the Pittsburgh, New Hampshire side and get up and bushwhack. Camping will be dispersed, leave no trace day, camping. So coming in and making sure you're taking care of the land. No fires will be allowed. This property is going to be enrolled in our hunting program. So that means that with some restrictions, so we allow hunting of abundant prey species. So hunting ruffed grouse, if you want to take a walk in the fall with your shotgun on a logging road, awesome. Hunting of white-tailed deer. It's more of a Western style hunt, so folks will be welcome to come in as long as they can pack out all their meat, maybe take a couple trips. You can bring a tow sled if you want. And fishing. So we're at a spot for fishing. So if you want to come in with your fly rod, or if you want to paddle up and you don't mind taking a little bit to get here, you can come in from Parmacini Lake, which is also a great paddle, or come in from Aziscahas Lake.
As you can see, there are a lot of moving parts to the Magalloway Collaborative Project, but the various groups involved are all working toward common goals that will ultimately serve as a win for the environment. And there's a good chance that those goals will be achieved. As of February 2026, the Magalloway Collaborative Partners have reached 80% of their $62 million fundraising goal, and they're confident that they will raise the rest of the money and close the project by spring of 2026. For more information, visit magalloway.org.